All right. Uh-oh. It just cut off. I can't hear you anymore. Okay, click here when live stream. Mm. All right. Uh-oh. It just cut off. I can't. All right. Uh-oh. It just cut off. I can't hear you anymore. Yeah, that's a heck of a delay. You know what? Do I even need? How is that? All right, what up, everybody? Give us a few minutes. We're trying to get the technical stuff down. We ran into a few issues. Good. All right. Can you hear me okay, Tony? Snap, I can't hear you now. Not sure what happened here. Can you say something? I'm going to see if we could hear on on no, you're muted. All right, I'll turn that down. What up, everyone? Give us just a few minutes. We might need a couple minutes, but it's going to be well worth it once we get this down. Okay, we should be split screen, but it's not going on split screen.
Jeffrey, that's the wee mute thing. You should be able to hear me now. Okay, I think.
Yeah, I can hear you okay. There's a bit of a delay. Like I got a little monitor right here on my iPad, and I'm going to see
Mm,
now if we could get the split screen and see how that. Okay, we got the split screen going now. Let me
okay.
turn this up. Just here. Okay, it's looking good on there. What up, everyone? Okay, dope, dope. We see already a few of you have joined. Thank you for patiently watching while we get everything started. All the way from Nepal, dude. Nepal's dope, man. I've been there once. Can't wait to go back. And Guillermo from Spain. Hey guys, how you doing? All
Hey
right.
guys.
And let me just make sure I got the chat here because I want this to be an interactive call. All right. So check this out. Before I introduce our guests and we get started, uh, I had this realization recently. Like I went over to WordCamp and I've been connecting a lot. I've been connecting a lot for a while now inside the building businesses with Elementor and then the Lytbox Pro Academy with a lot of other web creators who are doing awesome things. People who are building agencies, successful freelancers, and one thing that I realize out of all this is there's really no cookie cutter solution or like roadmap or like this is how you build an agency, this is how you make money off of building websites. There are a lot of different ways. We have a lot of different strengths, a lot of different areas we need to improve on. There's a lot of different ways of doing this. So, being able to connect with so many awesome web creators, people who are doing just some awesome things, creating and building agencies, freelance businesses, and just web businesses. What I wanted to do was I wanted to bring that connection to everybody else. I wanted to be able to get into a different level of connecting with people who are just rocking it, people who are just really, really doing some cool things because we post a lot and we see a lot like on social media, a lot on Facebook groups, but never really on this closer level where we can engage with each other because we have a lot to learn from each other. And tonight I'm really excited to do this with somebody who I've learned a lot from. Tony. Tony is, well, we're both doing a late night session right now. We're both out here in Asia. What I'm going to do, Tony, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, man. I'm probably going to drop some stuff here and there because, dude, you are a guy who has been rocking it. You have a very good success story. You've done a lot of awesome things. And every time we've spoken, every time we've had our live group calls inside the Lytbox Pro Academy, like I'm always learning something new from you. So I'm going to turn it over to you and let you introduce yourself.
No worries. Thanks so much, Jeffrey. And it was an absolutely lovely intro. And just before I even start saying anything else, the reason why, my business is doing well is down to the fact I've been collaborating with good people like you as well. So, again, over the last few years, I've learned so much from you. The Lytbox Academy, the courses that you've ran, they've all been areas of weakness for me and things I had to learn. So very appreciative of that. But yeah, look, just quick introduction. So my name's Tony Baker. I run an IT consultancy in the UK, Technology Consulting Group. I cover a few different remits. So I do web design, I do IT managed services, and then I do just bespoke IT consultancy around that, which is more around like data governance and data security. So that's kind of my remit and what I do for Technology. In terms of overall background, I've been in the IT industry now probably too long. It's been at least 22 years, something like that. I've been involved in WordPress now for about 6-7 years. Yeah, absolutely love it. I literally took my business from being like a side, project business through in COVID, and it became my full-time gig, and this past few years have been an absolute roller coaster, but I've loved every minute of it. It's been great.
Nice, nice. And yeah, like every time I hear about the stuff that you're doing, especially like IT wise and taking all of your experience you've had in the IT field and you're bringing it to your WordPress business and what you're doing WordPress, it always just like blows my mind because it's very far, way above my head. Some of the stuff you do, like for example, like we're both really big on WordPress maintenance plans, and we've connected like it was about a couple years ago now. Doing the WordPress maintenance plans, and I'm really big on automating as much as possible. Like I believe a successful WordPress maintenance business means that we should be spending as little time in the day-to-day work on it. Like the setup process and the automation is what makes that business scalable. And we're both on track with that, but then you took it to another level. You know, you if you like you built your own servers. First off, if you can break it down, because still every time you go into it about like your servers and like everything that you built, because you do things that are just very secure, just on a whole other level. I'm going to let you explain that because you're going to be able to far better than I can.
Yeah, no worries, Jeffrey. Well, look, I suppose really to kind of give you a bit of overview of my background, because again, Jeffrey, as we've spoken about, we've been journeymen. We're all on our own unique journey, and within the tech space, no two people have the same skill set. Really, it's a vast area of learning. Like in terms of my kind of core skill set, I'd probably be 40% infrastructure, 40% development, 20% design. Design would be my kind of weakest point and something that I'm always trying to improve on. But the infrastructure and development bit is kind of like that's the bit I love the most, and automation and all that stuff kind of ties in with that bit really well. You're almost in like that kind of DevOps space, especially with the sort of software and opportunities there is now. So yeah, look, in terms of my kind of setup, so I'm a great believer in privacy by design. And what I mean by that is the idea of, managing and controlling as much as you can and locking it down in such a way that, the access to it is very secure, who the data is shared with is very secure. And to do that, you have to really kind of start to think outside the box a little bit. Like anybody I think that goes into the web development or web design space, most people go through a similar journey. They start off with like GoDaddy and SiteGround and, the stereotypical shared hosting providers. And as we all know now, they are shared hosting. You know, it is you're getting a tiny small amount of server space amongst other websites or other users. And yes, it's fine, you know, and it depends very much on what you're building. If you're just building brochure sites that don't carry much sensitive information, yeah, rock on. You know, you can get a SiteGround plan, put loads of websites on it. They've got a good service team. You'll be tickety boo. But once you start to move into the next level of design and development, where you're thinking more about dynamic data, you're acquiring more user information, a lot of which can be quite sensitive, you have to start thinking differently, you know, about how you structure and manage that data and how you keep it secure. So in terms of like my setup, you know, I kind of went through that, you know, kind of treadmill of shared hosting and then into services like, you know, Cloudways, which would be the next natural step for most people that are building an agency. They'll start off and they'll get to grips with what hosting is fundamentally. And then once they get the grips with that, they'll move to something like Cloudways, which is that next step up the ladder. And the guys start to get the understanding of VPS or virtual private servers, and what they can do with them, you know. And then once they've kind of got that bit, the next bit is saying, right, okay, well, I technically don't need something like Cloudways. There's other great providers out there like GridPane, Employ, RunCloud. There's loads of what we described as, you know, panels for managing virtual private servers, you know. And once you start looking at that and you start thinking, right, okay, and it's not so much about saving money, it's more about saying, right, okay, well, you know, what options does that present to me? You know, what does that mean in terms of how I can create backups and where those backups are stored and how, you know, what access that company has to my data? So it's things like that start to kick more into play, you know. Like, to give you an idea of my setup now, I use RunCloud purely because it fits my needs. You know, I don't just look at WordPress. You know, I host other things, and RunCloud is quite flexible in that respect. You know, it does a lot out of the box, and it's very, very easy to work with. You know, I use it for managing VPS servers with Hetzner, Oracle, Vultr, and a few of the other normal names that we had all come across. And it's great. You have a lot of flexibility with it, you know. If I wasn't using that, I'd probably be using something like GridPane, which, you know, is probably like the top level. If you're looking for like the best performance you can get, you know, with a stack in the WordPress space, it's probably GridPane. But RunCloud for me kind of does everything I need and offers me that flexibility. Key things that I kind of look for is, right, okay, you know, I want the flexibility of picking the data center, you know, that my client's data is stored. And then again, the backup piece. So where, you know, if you're with something like SiteGround or one of the household name shared providers, you kind of use their backup solution. At best, you might have a plugin on a WordPress website, which is doing some backups for you. But as we all know, they're not that secure. They have their own vulnerabilities and they don't always work the way you expect them to. Where once you start looking at, you know, Ploy or RunCloud or GridPane or these solutions, that then opens up for you, because then you can say, right, okay, you can pick your own storage locations, or, you know, in my case, you can have your own, and you can start to think about proper, you know, disaster recovery planning and how data is structured and things like that. Like, you know, something that comes up for me with my clients is like data repatriation. So, for example, if there was an issue where, say, part of the web went down, how they could securely get their data back, you know, so things like that start to come more into play. So for me, in terms of that bit with hosting, you know, I'll use RunCloud, I'll use a VPS like Vultr, which is super common, people really like it. And then in terms of backup solution, I normally have like a 3-point backup solution. So I run a pretty big Synology here, which burns through my household electricity bill. But again, that's, you know, my primary backup solution, and then followed by Amazon Web Services. I use buckets within Amazon Web Services for backups. And then on top of that, I also have a separate backup, a cloud backup solution in Germany. So that's my kind of coverage for hosting. So that's the first bit. And probably on top of that, then when we look at the kind of software layer, I'm very big into self-hosting. If there's a way of taking a SaaS solution and having a self-hosted version of it, I'm all in that. Privacy by design, you know, when I think of that, if I can have a piece of software on my own server with my own backups, that's as secure as you're really going to get. You're the person in control. You've got that container, and then you can decide who has access to it. Where if you're using a SaaS provider, like, don't get me wrong, we all use SaaS providers for different things. However, when it comes to sensitive information, you're better, where possible, having control over it. So, for example, a few basic things that work really well for me. Again, this wouldn't be for everybody, but in terms of my stack, it works well. Obviously, I'm a big fan of things like Managed WP and WP Umbrella and these website management-based solutions. The one I personally use is Main WP. The reason why I use that is purely because it's self-hosted. It's effectively a plugin that you add to a WordPress install, and then you can customize it and manage it to your heart's content. And then, and it does all the things you'd expect with any of those services like Managed WP. But for me, the icing on the cake is then it's very developer friendly. So you can actually start to, manage PHP scripts through it and CSS scripts and deploy those remotely to your websites. So it gives you a lot more scope in terms of manageability. So that's just, one example. Another thing that works really well for me is the whole, client management piece. So I have two solutions I work with at the minute. Perfect CRM, which again is a self-hosted CRM solution. And again, you can automate around that. And I also work with Pluto, which again, it is a SaaS solution, but it's based in the UK and it falls under EU guidelines. They're as GDPR compliant as you'd expect with those solutions, So yeah, I have other products on top of that I use for clients like Project Huddle, which, for client feedback, again, self-hosted solution, works really well. And these are all things that you can buy like with lifetime licenses. And they work out of the box, just as you'd expect any of the other SaaS solutions to work, and there's cost savings with that too. Once you kind of skip past shared hosting and the kind of cloud-wise model and start to look at saying, right, I'll just buy my own VPS servers or VPS virtual space in the data center, what would cost maybe $15, $20 in, cloud-wise or a solution like that. You can pick that up for maybe $2 or $3 or $5 if you want something a bit better in the kind of direct space once you skip past and go straight to market. So, on one hand, you have cost savings, you have more control, and you also the fact that you can start to really look at hosting your own stuff for a lower cost base, So yeah, they're just kind of some of the solutions I work with. I'm always looking for other ones. So yeah,
we geek out a lot, and you see, like right now, I just like, dude, go for it, like start dropping it, and everything is open up if anybody has questions. I see Andy, another pro members here, man. What's up, Andy? Yeah. So I mean, okay, there's a lot in there. So I know a lot of questions started coming to my mind. But I want to kind of go back to the backup part because you said like my own, and you mentioned a few different backups, and I think backups are just one of those things. Like it isn't until you're in a situation where the backups that you have are corrupted for a site that is very active, or an hour could mean hundreds or thousands of dollars, even more, in the kind of liability we could have. Because, I've been in that situation before, and the client comes back like, we estimated we lost $7,000 this hour. What are we going to do? And it's like, okay, that's when we start to like look at really what is the liability if we are managing a client's website. So I want to go down and let's break it down and simplify it. The few different, like your different backups and the different layers that you have. Also to let people know the possibilities of what we could do to have more secure backups.
Yeah. Okay, cool. No problem. Well, I suppose probably, and I kind of work on the standard principle of having 3 backups at any one time and have them run at different intervals. So, again, the best way to describe this, so say you're using a shared hosting provider, most of them will offer a backup solution, but that's only one point of failure. So if that backup solution, for whatever reason, like you said, Jeffrey, becomes corrupted, you're dead in the water. That's an issue, and it does happen. You find a lot of the shared host providers, they don't act, they are renting from data centers as well. So say for example, it's Google Cloud Compute, and they are effectively providing their service through them, and they may also hold their backups with them. So if there's a major data center outage or something unexpected happens, yeah, it can be a big issue. It can be a big issue for you and for your clients as well. So I think having alternative backups is pretty critical. Especially now, like we're kind of in a transient state at the minute with WordPress and page builders. There's a lot of stuff happening, a lot of great stuff, but we know for a fact that the code base of WordPress is growing substantially. We've just finished phase 2 with full site editing. We're now going on to phase 3 in terms of that collaboration piece. It's all good stuff, but it does mean that each time you install WordPress, the code base is growing. Is growing because they're expanding it and creating more functionality. And equally, we're seeing a raft of new page builders and things coming along, which, is fantastic. And it's lovely to have those options in the market and that level of competition as well. That competition is good for all of us, regardless of what we use. It inspires page builder companies to make their products better so they remain competitive. But it also means we have to be more careful with backups. It also means that you need to have good policies in place there, in terms of how you structure your backups,
What do you mean about the policies? I'm sorry to take you off track, but what do you mean by the policies with backups?
Well, basically what I mean by that is how your backups are structured, like for example, I tie mine in with my maintenance plans. And I got, Jeffrey, this is inspiration from you in terms of, the pricing models and what you offer for that. So somebody on a basic plan will get, there'll be a daily backup taken. And again, that will go across my 3 backup solutions. So it'll go to my local backup here with my Synology setup. It'll go to Amazon Web Services. And it'll go with my third-party data center in Germany. Okay, so you end up with 3. I also do server backups as well. So snapshots on a server level. So even if an entire server fails, that can also move across. So there is a 4th solution there, but I don't count that. So I don't know why, but I don't count that as a backup. It's more a backup at my level. If for talk's sake an entire server went down and I needed to recover that within the data center, i.e. move that volume to another server. Okay. So yeah, and again, for how that's structured for me, so there's daily backups provided to all 3 devices, and then that is. For the Synology setup, that's actually checked. So as that's been backed up, it's been checked by the device itself for any viruses or any corruption with data. So I always know that local version is very, very secure. And again, for anybody who's never used Synology products before, it's a one-off purchase. They're very, very flexible in terms of what you can do with them. I use them for 2 very simple things for website backups. And basically all they do is, just to what's called an rsync backup directly from the server. But you can also use them for other things. Like I manage various Microsoft 365 estates for clients all over the world, and every night it backs up all of those as well. So every individual 365 account, emails, SharePoint, the lot, all recoverable, all categorized. So, and I know a lot of web developers and designers out there, they do provide websites, but they also then provide some form of email system. And a lot of the time it's going to be Elastic Email, or if the client's looking something better, it's going to be Google Workspace or 365. So if you are interested in Synology's as a backup solution, it does all of those out of the box, very, very simply. Okay. So definitely worth looking at. And again, just moving on to that next step with AWS. Again, there's loads. Once you start looking at the kind of enterprise level of the market, you start looking at other things like Backblaze. There's loads of solutions out there that are, in my mind, would be higher grade, more reliable. For me, it's AWS purely because, it's the biggest data center or cloud provider in the world. It's got massive resources. I've personally never had an issue with anything that I've had through them. All of my client websites use them for transactional emails as well. And it is as cheap as chips. I think my AWS bill per month is about $10 for everything. And
do you think it's just a whole setup process for AWS that holds everyone back? Because I know I looked into it, but when I started looking into should I just use it? Because if I get AWS on Cloudways, it's a grip. Yeah. It is not cheap on Cloudways. I'm looking at least $60, $80 just for the small version when I could pay $10 for DigitalOcean. So for AWS, is that just a setup also like the management of the server? What do you have to do for that? How long does it take you to set that up? And what do you put in on the regular management for the maintenance for that AWS server?
Yeah, Jeffrey, I think it depends. First of all, the AWS servers, I only offer my top tier plan because you're right, there is more effort goes into setting up an AWS server and locking it down so it's secure. But the benefit, the big benefit really is the scalability. So you can effectively auto scale AWS servers, which is a very, very important thing.
Up
I'm
and
sure you've
down,
been
right?
through it.
Yeah, up
Yeah,
and down.
yeah.
Like client, they have a big sale, flash sale coming on. Like, okay, let's boost it up, take it down as soon as it slows down, right?
Yeah, it's that bit alone is exceptional. Once you start getting into very complex websites, like you're saying, like WooCommerce or LMS, where you can have a massive influx of users, it's you need that. Otherwise, and you see this come up all the
Mandatory.
time on WordPress communities where, you know, a developer sitting struggling because of the situation where a client's sales just went boom and their website's just crashed. There's just, it's flatlining, and they don't know what to do, or they're trying to lift the website and move it across to a bigger VPS. But at that point, they're being reactive, you know. And it's all about being proactive. And I think once you start looking at Run Cloud and GridP and these solutions, all of a sudden the dots start to come together and like, right, okay, this offers me a lot more, in terms of what I can do now. Like to, upscale an AWS server literally takes about 2 minutes. If you want to turn around and say, right, I'm going to move this from 2 cores with 2 gig of RAM to 8 cores with 64 gig of RAM, it's a 2 minute exercise, the same actually, there's a couple of, I always find that on the WordPress communities, people naturally gravitate towards Vultr high frequency and stuff like that, which is great, don't get me wrong. But there's loads of other really good providers out there. Like my favorite one is Hetzner in Europe. They've been a cloud provider, data center provider for 25 years, 26 years now actually. You can auto scale with it. It's extremely cost effective and super robust. It's probably the only provider I have that is 100% uptime. It's
Really?
never went
Okay.
offline.
And
You
that
know.
is, you go directly through them, or do you use like a third party management system like Cloudways?
Well, I use Run Cloud to manage my Hetzner VPSs.
Okay.
And it used to be that with Run Cloud, you only had the usual ones that Cloudways had, and you had to manually install Run Cloud onto the VPS, which there was a wee bit of command line work involved, but everything's so well documented on the Run Cloud website. And equally, the Run Cloud community is so helpful. Like, they're all really seasoned guys. You don't get people in there asking, silly questions every day. Or complaining about support really or anything like that. It's all, it's a very close, helpful community. But Run Cloud themselves, I think their support's absolutely superb. I should really have an affiliate link here somewhere associated for them. But yeah, look,
Yeah.
I've none but good things to say about them. But equally, I know people have had issues with Cloudways. I personally never did. The support I had from Cloudways is always really good too. And I just want to say as well, for anybody that's using Cloudways, at the minute, and for backups, their backup solution is actually really good too. It's also with AWS, and it's a distributed backup solution across Europe. So not to be, it's one of those things. It's not documented anywhere. I had to go digging into their support team to,
Ah,
gradually get more information out of them.
to
But
find
once they
out where
actually,
it's being set,
yeah, it was good.
where it's being held at, right? Because that's
Mm,
something we need to now in this time. Being a web developer, web creator, agency owner, freelancer, whatever it is, we need to know where everything is at. We
yeah.
can't. I mean, we can't. And I know, like, I wanted to touch up on GDPR, but
Mm,
that all falls into there. Like, if we have backups and our client is in Germany and we're keeping our backups here in Asia, that could
mm,
be a really big problem. It could cause
yeah.
problems for the client and for us. If something
Mm,
happens. But just really quick, for anybody that is watching, I just kind of want to go back to what you
sure.
said about that journey, starting off with shared hosting and working your way up. Dude, you broke down my journey. That's exactly how I started. I got GoDaddy, my first one, because I knew no better. You know, like if you Google, and I got a video coming up on this, I shouldn't give it away too much yet. But if you Google, like, what's the best hosting to get, we're not getting the right answers. We're getting the most paid affiliate answers, you know, which is like GoDaddy, Bluehost, HostGator, and they're you know, they're just stuffed servers. They're stuffed, and they
Yeah.
aren't secure. We're sharing IP addresses with a lot of other people. You don't know how secure somebody else's website is. It's a good starting place for when we're just beginning, but it's also one of those painful paths that we got to take. And as we stick around long enough doing this, we'll have enough headaches where it is time to move forward and find a better solution. Like for me, I went from that to SiteGround. SiteGround was actually good. That is one
Yeah.
of the shared hostings, one of the, you know, the lower budgets that I would suggest. I still think it's decent. Uh,
Yeah.
but then I went to like WP Engine, Flywheel, and then I landed on Cloudways a couple years ago, and I've been super happy with Cloudways. Like it has everything I need. But you know what? Like what you're talking about, you know, like Run Cloud and these other options that we have, I think it's important that we keep continuing to improve and find, you know, what's better and keep looking for what's better, because if it's working right now, like if I would have stayed, let's say, with, you know, SiteGround, which is decent, I wouldn't know how good Cloudways was. And it isn't until you actually get in it and try it and you feel the difference right away. You can feel it. You feel the snappiness. A website just goes better. Things go smoother. And yeah, that's where I'm at. And that's why I wanted to say that. I wanted to throw it out there for anybody else watching. If you are in the early stages using one of these, start looking at how you can move up, and start to invest time into learning these different hostings, because they make such a huge difference in what we do.
Yeah, very much so, Jeffrey. Like, you know, Cloudways is a great middle ground. It does most things that people need, and it does them really well. You know, I know they kind of get a bad gig sometimes. You know, things happen, but it's just because they're big. You know, they're more noticeable. But overall, like, you know, I was with Cloudways for about 2 years. I thought their service is really good. You know, like there's a lot of things that, you know, are packaged with Cloudways that people just don't even spot. You know, the analytics, the access to New Relic, there's loads of things there out of the box that if you're moving then to, you know, another solution, a more advanced solution like Run Cloud or GridPane, you have to start doing you know, thinking differently about how you structure stuff, you know, and how you manage it, and you become more accountable too. You know, truth been told, if everything hits the wall, you know, Cloudways will help you. You know, they you know, and the odds of it happening because of they first of all, they don't give you root access. There's limitations of control there. They purposely put in place to make sure things don't go too badly wrong for you. But if you're, you know, got root access to a VPS yourself, and you know, on command line you do something silly and the thing explodes on you, you know, Run Cloud are not going to be brushing up the pieces. That, you know, it's on your head. That's probably the key difference. You know,
Yeah.
um, but it's a learning curve. I think everybody who is interested in that sort of stuff, you know, and in my mind, because, you know, we're all lifelong students of these things, and you stay humble to learn every day. You know, if you're interested in that stuff, it's not a big learning curve really. And once you get to grips with it, you know, it's a no-brainer after that. Like, to be honest with you, that side of my business now, the kind of Run Cloud VPS bit, it's a set and forget thing now. I literally don't look at it from one week to the next. You know, it does its job, it does it well. I get their updates coming through once a month or whatever, and that's really it. You know, um,
Yeah. So
but yeah,
it sounds
oh,
so.
yeah,
You're doing stuff way beyond just managing WordPress websites. Now, if you
yeah,
don't mind me asking, you know, feel free. You don't have to answer. Now, I know like managing a WordPress website. You know, I know what the price range for that is. When you're doing something like having backups stored on your own server, backing up, you know, Microsoft 360 and all that, and just doing this much higher level stuff. Can you give us an idea? You don't have to say the actual prices, but just an idea of the scalability, you know, for pricing when it comes to that.
Yeah, well, Jeffrey, no problem. Like, obviously, I've kind of niched into, well, I've niched into two things. One, membership websites, which is my kind of core product line, and then also I do a lot of work for universities and not for profits. So very, very unique, dynamic database websites, very complex with what they do. But like my kind of price range goes anywhere from about 10,000 sterling up to about 50, 60,000. So it does, but they are, it sounds like a lot of money, but, each project, like a 50K project could run for 6 months. It could run for a year. There's a lot of stakeholders involved. Again, there's a lot of data governance, compliance considerations, and I have quite an extensive background in public sector work, and bidding for this work. And,
Mm.
it works well for me, but I need to have that kind of foundation of understanding the infrastructure that I'm using, have more control over it. And again, that whole piece around GDPR, and not just GDPR, but I look at compliance across a range of countries. Like, at the minute, I'm working with a key client in Australia. So there's been a learning curve there and an understanding of their data governance and laws. And then my other one of them is in Switzerland, So again, and, I've American clients as well. Again, they're subject to state. There's various different compliance laws in place there now as well, which, if you're in the kind of website space and, you're into maintenance plans, it's good to know about this stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. Uh, and just throwing it out there, everybody watching, feel free to ask questions. Maha, so awesome to see you here, and Derek, good to see you. Man, okay, cool. I really feel this is a good segue to GDPR. I want to bring this up, all right, because we've had some discussions about this, and I know, okay, like maybe about a year or so ago, I'm a bit of a rebel. That's just how I was ever since I was young. I fight against the system, authority, all that stuff. So when the government comes in and tells me you got to do this, I'm like, I'm a creative. I got into this. I got out of my management job so I could get tatted up and walk into board meetings just like this. Like that was my that was one of the reasons why I became a web designer. I wanted to be me, and I was resistant. Plus, I'm American. So when GDPR was telling me like, what? Dude, how you want to tell me? So I know we kind of had those talks. But that was like my attitude then. But then like I'm still a bit of a rebel, but at the same time, it is important to look at all different sides and different perspectives and be open-minded. Being closed-minded is not good in any situation. So like in fact, it was some of the discussions with you that helped me to open up my mind and really look at it. And I stopped looking at it as the government and, lawyers just trying to get, whatever my thoughts and beliefs on this were, Big Brother telling me what to do. More on how are we protecting people? How are we, protecting our clients' customers and their people? And then I had to start looking at my own. Like my email lists have been building up quite a bit. Things like that.
Yeah.
How am I protecting the people who trust me? And I know that my clients, they want to protect the people who trust them. So I had to let go of that, like, who you going to tell me what to do mentality to how could we do good for people and protect them. Like for me, I stopped using Google Analytics a long time ago. I self-host all of my email, like all my email lists, everything. Like for me personally, I took it personal. So I think that opened it up too. Changed my thoughts on it as well because I wanted to make sure that I know what it feels like. That's the thing. Like I got my business email. I got a few different emails. I got my business email I use for very specific things.
Yeah.
And when I get spam to my business email, that means somebody I trusted sold my email, and I feel like they stole from me, like they stole my trust. And somebody that sent me the message or emailing me, like, they stole my information. I didn't give them that. So now that is where I'm at with GDPR. It was a transition. It was a journey to like, see different perspectives. And now the U.S. is implementing their own laws and stuff like that. Okay, now that we're opening this up, I want to ask you because you have really good insight on this. You really know stuff about this. For those that are just getting started, whether they're in Australia, whether they are in the US or wherever they're at, what are some good practices they could do right now to get started?
Yeah, Jeffrey, there, I think what's the best way to explain this? Right. So, I'll go back to the whole idea of privacy by design. And I think the key thing for any web developer, web designer now, whenever they're putting together what would be their stack for their website, well, let's forget about the infrastructure stuff, but I mean just the website itself, is just to make sure they are using the right plugins and the right tools, and not skimping on stuff that just because it's cheap or it's free or they got it for $19 off AppSumo doesn't mean it's the right tool for the job. And just to be mindful, really. I think for a lot of creators, and I get it, it's like a taboo subject for them, and naturally so. They want to be building, designing websites. They don't want to be sitting, tearing their brains over EU policies on data governance. That's not what they really want to be doing. The natural thing that I think a lot of designers do is they'll say, right, okay, I'll grab Cookie Yes or Cookie Bot, right, I'll drop it on my website, the free version of it. I'll have a little banner popping up on the homepage and tickety boo, we're all good. Until the police come knocking on my door, I'm going to forget about it. And that's what happens. Like literally, I'd say 90% of the time for most people. However, there's another way to look at this whole situation in the sense that what you touched on earlier is so pivotally important. This isn't a thing that the European government decided to do for badness or other countries, because there's various data laws in America, for example, various state laws, and they're there for a reason. They're there to protect people. They're there to protect people's identity, their information, and rightfully so. It's GDPR has effectively started a global movement. That's what I see whenever I see the changes in various countries. They're all trying to get to grips with that and have their own policies that suit their country and suit their people, which makes perfect sense. If we go back here to 2015, I think that was the year officially that data overtook gold as the highest value commodity in the world. That's a big thing. And we've all been readily giving that to Google and all these companies for years willingly for what were perceived as free services. But as we all know, there's nothing that's sliced for free. And you're right, Jeffrey, even what you're saying there about, moving to things like Fluent CRM for, your data control, that's then on your website. You can manage it. You're protecting it. It's a great thing to do, But in terms of the core basics that we should all be looking at, your plugin stack, make sure that the plugins are not making random external API calls. That's probably one of the first things that I come across whenever I'm auditing websites, because I that's part of what I do now. I'll get companies and organizations say, look, would you check our website to see if it's meeting basic compliance needs? And 99% of the times there's plugins that are making external calls, for example, to Google for Google Fonts API.
How do you find that out? How do you test that?
Very simple. You don't need to pay for anything. Like, go onto there's various things you can use, like Query Monitor, even just right click and inspecting your WordPress dashboard, refresh it, see what third-party scripts load. There's options there within your inspection panel within Chrome or any of the browsers, and you can see what's been loaded. Most better WordPress plugins will be using the native styling and native components of WordPress. The best ones do that. The ones that are cheap and nasty will have their own crazy UIs going on and all that sort of stuff, which, for like I customize and design my dashboards for clients. So the dashboard is white labeled. It doesn't really look like WordPress that much. It's just like their client is, the client has their own experience. And it's one of my biggest bugbears, and it's part of the reason why I wouldn't buy a plugin if I see they've effectively just mashed together their own strange looking UI within WordPress. Like it's just a big no-no.
Yeah. That right there, there's a few that I would never touch just because like I don't use Yoast. I won't use it for the simple fact that they blast their stuff over everything. And we're seeing it right now. Like I heard reports of Duplicator. I know I'm going off track right now, but I just saw Duplicator got bought out by some infamous somebody who's buying up all the plugins, and it went from being a good one and all of a sudden bam, update, and now it's got the banners all throughout, and yeah, messes up the
Yeah.
UI. So yeah, that's a ooh, I could go off on that one. I'm sure everyone else out there has felt that pain using one of those. So I just got to the point, dude. If your plugin does this, yeah, stop. Stop.
Yeah, like there's so much of that too. But Jeffrey, I think we're lucky now. We're coming into a different time with WordPress anyway. Core is expanding. There's a lot of stuff we can do now that doesn't create dependencies. I know it's probably not in favor with a lot of people right now, but full site editing is going to completely change the game. For a lot of people. Obviously, it's not for everyone, and it's there's a big learning curve with it. But if you look underneath the surface of what you now have, you don't need a theme anymore. That's not really. If you look actually at a full site editing theme, it doesn't really do anything. It's a shell. There's nothing in it. You can actually automatically release the plugin, so you can just literally create your own out of any block editing theme, which I just think is fantastic. WP Engine launched a brilliant product this week as well, called Pattern Manager. So you can now just go in and create your own patterns and save them directly into your new theme. So again, that's not a dependency thing anymore. You don't need a plugin to do that. You can literally, well, you're using Pattern Manager as a plugin, but the second you've finished creating your patterns, you just remove it off your website. You don't need the plugin anymore. It's all done. Send it to your client. And again, with actual Gutenberg blocks, they've come a long way compared to where they were. It's still very clunky. It's nowhere near in the same level as something like Elementor or Bricks, and it'll probably be years. It might never get that far. However, they've still made vast improvements. And if you're quite far down the track in terms of an understanding of HTML, CSS frameworks, if that's your thing, you could probably work quite well just with Gutenberg blocks, or maybe using something like Pinegrow, and just make your own. I think Adam Lowe is just launching a course on that at the moment as well, which is brilliant. So effectively, you can actually now create an entire WordPress experience for a client with zero dependencies. Then you'll have no GDPR issues because you've created it all yourself.
Yeah.
You could literally, your plugin stack will be security maybe, if you, but again, you can do it on the server level. I don't actually know what you'd have. Maybe bar dynamic data plugins. That's really it. I know, Jeffrey, you love the minimalist approach, and I just think a few years from now WordPress is just going to be like so much better than it's been in the past. I think it's stagnant for like.
It's already almost. I mean, I'm still a big time Elementor user, and it's gotten to the point, and even Bricks is like very close to it, to the point where it's good enough alone for like 95% websites. Brochure websites, there's no need for add-ons. I mean, you're right. All you need to do is have your security stack, have an SEO stack, and have your optimization stack. And you could really just have a website with well under 10 plugins and a bare bones theme now. I mean, in fact, just about all of our websites have that now. There's really no need for a bunch of plugins. But I know, like, once we're new, and this is for like the newer people to WordPress, you're like playing around with a lot of plugins. It's kind of like getting a new iPhone. You're going to be downloading tons of apps, trying them out and testing them out. We're right now at a time where I really want to promote more and teach more about building an ecosystem. Because really, I'm going to go back to the iPhone. After you've downloaded all those apps, none of them are really getting used. You just have a core of them that are being used, that are mostly part of the Apple ecosystem, which is what made Apple really stand out so much. They have their own ecosystem. There's power in that. Like you could have a stack just for Bricks. You could have one just for Oxygen. I think too, this might be why so many people are passionate about the tool that they are. It's like you could look at it like there's a lot of tribalism going on, but there's also people are just really passionate. They found their stack. They found what works for them, and it works. And I think that's what we all got to do. We got to find our stack that works. But then once we find it, how do we keep that that GDPR compliance going on? So I'm going to take it back because I know we just went off track. And we only got, oh, wow. Okay, I want to respect the time because for those of you guys that don't know, it's like 10 for me. What time is it for you, Tony?
Just come to 11. But I'm buzzing, man. I'm good. Don't worry. I love these conversations. You know that.
Right, right. Okay, so let's go back to the original question. What should people new to GDPR? What should they know first, and what practices should they follow just to get started?
Okay. So just to jump back, the first thing is to, whenever you're starting off building WordPress websites, just think of the concept of privacy by design. So again, as I mentioned, be careful with your plugin stack. Next thing I said, invest in a proper cookie system, a proper policy management system. A lot of people try and skimp on that and think that I can get away with a free one. You can't really. If unless you're locking a website down to a specific region, to a specific audience, and you have put your policies in place for that, it's something that everybody has to do. And I'd say 99% of websites are just left open, that they can be accessed anywhere in the world, which means that anybody from any country in the world can access them, which means you're liable for the compliance for all those countries. You're liable to, make sure that the data is protected in the way that those countries need it to be done. Okay, it's really that simple. That's the not the debt, but that's part of the job now that we do. It's same with anybody. It doesn't matter whether you're building a website or you're building an app or whatever. We all kind of fall under that watershed. So my advice would be would be invest in a good compliance product, something like Compliance, which I know, Jeffrey, we chatted about in the community quite recently as well. They have a pro license version, which is very reasonably priced. You pay for it per year. I think you can get like 5 licenses for maybe $100, $125 or something like that. It scales right up to $500 if you've got I think it's 100 websites or unlimited, something like that. But again, a product like that, it guides you through the process of making sure you've got the right privacy policies, the right cookie. And I'm saying policies because they set you up with more than one. It will ask you, what countries do you plan on providing services in? Where is your website accessible? What services do you provide? What plugins do you use? And it knows, based on the plugin stack, how to define the cookie policy and privacy policies for that, Because again, unless, and I always respect the fact that most people that are starting off their career in web development, most of us, we all have been there, do it bootstrapped. You're sitting, most of us, like Jeffrey, I still remember clear as day sitting with my, whenever I started my WordPress journey with my 2013 MacBook, thinking, right, okay, I can do this all for free. It's great. But there's a lot of stuff that you get for free, but there is still stuff that you have to respect, and you do kind of have to put a bit of money into, a little bit. So I'd say look at something like that. There's other solutions out there like that, like OneTrust, which is another one as well, which is very good. Even the likes of Cookie, yes, I know they do offer pro level plans. And again, I'm only saying this if you plan on building websites that will carry sensitive information. What I mean by sensitive information is, say, for example, you have an Elementor site, it has a contact us form, okay? You have an option now with Elementor to save that locally to the database on the website, which means you're storing sensitive information, P2 information, right? The second you turn that on, you need to make sure that website is compliant. You need to make sure it's secure. It's just part of the stuff that we do now. It's slightly different if that contact form is just literally sending an email straight to a server somewhere. And again, you might have a policy and documentation on your website about that. It changes the context. But for most of us now, we, like Jeffrey, you touched on earlier on about using things like Fluent CRM, which is a fantastic product. It's acquiring, storing loads of sensitive information. So just make sure that you've invested in a pro tool for compliance, and that's really the best thing you can do at this stage. It's a step above what most people do. Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be my honest advice. Don't rely on free plugins.
And that's Compliance, right? With the Z at
Yes.
the end. Nichols and Grind, which is a dope name, by the way, asked what was the first one. So I believe the first one you mentioned was Compliance.
Yeah. It's actually a European company as well. They're based in Holland, and very, very good. And very, very stable product. Very, very easy to customize. But what it does, and it's really smart the way it does it. So whenever, say, for example, you've got a website that's based, I don't know, in London, for talk's sake. So by default, you'll have UK policies on it. Say, for example, you get somebody from LA goes to access the website to buy a cap, for example, right? It will automatically change the policies to adjust for that state in America. So it'll do that for you on the fly dynamically.
Cool.
So things like that, especially if you're running WooCommerce, brilliant to have out of the box, And again, you don't need to be a solicitor or anything like that to get that up and going. If you wanted to take a step further and just outsource the entire thing, another product I'd really recommend, which is really good, is a product called Termageddon, which Jeffrey, I'm sure you probably came across before.
Yeah.
It's been in the WordPress community for quite a while now. It was set up by a solicitor who specializes in data law, and it's an exceptionally good product too. It has its own cookie policy system, privacy policy system, but you have the back in there. You know, the difference is compliance obviously is a software house, and I'm sure they have hired professionals to manage all the compliance element for them because they're software developers. They're not legal experts. Okay, so that's how they've done it.
Now, okay, I'm really glad you brought that part up. We're not legal experts, and this is where my rebel comes out. You know, it's like the thing is when we start building websites for clients, we have to start somewhere. And a lot of the times, like our first, like I believe for anybody who's brand new, I really believe your first year is about learning. It's about trial and error. It's about trying to develop skills. And you need to start somewhere. You need to start, you know, with low paying clients. And you got to figure that out because it's not just learning the skills of building a website, how to use WordPress and everything like that. It's also learning the soft skills, how to price projects, how to deal with scope creep, how to manage clients, manage projects. There's a lot to learn. So to tell any new creative, like, or to scare them with like these crazy laws or by all these countries, that's overwhelming. I feel like we're not legal experts, you know, and you know, like the whole data mining thing, you know, and all the, you know, the worth of it, it came from these big guys. You know, this is who should be getting, you know, the attention, not like us, you know, not some, you know, brand new WordPress developer, you know? So that's where my rebel comes out, this whole thing, like we're accountable. And, you know, and I feel like, if anything, all right, this is just my point of view. And that's all it is. This is just my opinion, my point of view on this. But my suggestion is going to be for anybody new getting into this, I wouldn't want anybody to be scared. I wouldn't want that to get in because I don't think we should be feeling fear over it. I feel like we should just be responsible in our own development process and learning and at least take those efforts to learn and to start to understand because there's so much to learn already. This is just one of the new things we need to learn. It's kind of like SEO. Like we do need to understand a little bit of SEO because if we build a WordPress, if a client comes to us, they already have an existing site. They say, hey, can you rebuild our site? If we have no clue about SEO, we could cause great harm to that website and our client and their rankings. We could destroy their rankings and everything they've built up. So we need to know a little bit there. I kind of look at GDPR as something like that. Like we need to know enough, you know, but but then at the end of the legal stuff, I think like because you do deal with some really big clients, some clients where if there was a breach and data was leaked, it would be a very big issue. It would be nothing small at all because it's a lot of data, a lot of sensitive stuff. So for sure, you know, you're at that level. For anybody else, for anybody with like smaller clients, I think it's just we need to look at what is the risk factor. How sensitive is the data? And if we come across a client with very sensitive data, there's big risk and it's out of our league. It doesn't mean we don't take the project. Maybe we should consult with somebody. Maybe we should reach out and get help just to make sure we are covered because it's the responsible thing to do.
Very much so, Jeffrey. You know, actually, there's two really good points that you made there. And, you know, the first thing I'd say to anybody who's, you know, kind of starting on their journey or maybe, you know, a few years into their journey in web design and development, play to your strengths, play to your passions. You see anything else, when the opportunity arises, outsource it or get advice. You know, the WordPress communities are brilliant in that respect that, you know, if you're not sure about something to do with, you know, compliance or data or whatever, jump on to Jeffrey's community, jump on to, you know, one of the other communities that, you know, there's people there that look at these things and you'll be surprised the amount of people that will help you with it that have came across those scenarios before, you know. But yeah, you know, definitely don't be afraid of something like GDPR. If anything, actually, you know, like I track a lot of the case law in the EU Commission purely because I want to understand what changes are taking place. That's just a personal interest. But one thing I've seen actually is that when it comes to, fines and things like that, there, first of all, as Jeffrey, rightly as you said, okay, it's normally the bigger companies, and they're normally the worst culprits for this stuff, because not only will they turn around, there will be a major data breach, a lot of them will try and bury it, so because of their
Once it get
brand
away. See,
reputation,
that's my. I got a little bit of anarchist in me, man. It
Oh,
comes
I.
out of moments. I'm like, they should be the ones going to. But yeah, it's all good. You're right, man. We just got to reach out, but it's the smaller things too, like being able to understand it, like, okay, using a good cookie solution, like a cookie privacy policies, being able to learn enough to inform clients and to let them know, like for policies they should be consulting with legal. Like I know for us, most of our clients, they have their lawyers draft up their privacy policies, their terms and conditions. Almost all of them do that now. They know how important it is, and then it's the smaller things, like we should know the best practices, like
Yeah.
not using Google fonts, not using Adobe fonts. Like we
Yeah.
can't use those anymore, or we have to install fonts. We can't use it the old school way where it links out. Like that's just a no-no.
Yeah.
A tough one though, Google Analytics. What if the client wants Google Analytics?
No. I know there's a lot of changes series with Google Analytics and all the rest of it, but it's just my issue again, Jerry, was jumping back to the big company thing, is they all plead ignorance until they're found guilty, right up to the last minute, and then the fines really don't mean that much anyway. Not to companies that are worth billions. They just, it's pocket change, really. It's collateral damage. So, from my perspective, I would not use Google Analytics. I'm actually the reverse end of the scale. I use a thing called Matomo Analytics, which again is self-hosted. I host that literally directly in Germany, and Germany to me is the European country that is probably the most compliant when it comes to data law. A lot of it stems from there, so I purposely host a lot of my client stuff from there and my own services.
They don't play over there.
It's an advocacy thing for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's loads of great solutions out there that are plausible, Fathom Analytics, and again, you have options within that, like Plausible, for example. You can pay them a monthly fee and they will host it for you, or you can also host that yourself in Docker. So there's different things you can do there, and personally, I actually find a lot of those solutions way easier to use than Google Analytics. Google Analytics is a nightmare to manage, so it isn't time consuming. Something like Plausible, great solution.
I dig Plausible. I use it for myself personally. It gives me exactly what I need. I don't do Facebook pixels or anything like that. If a client wants it, it's up to them. I just let them know, and it all depends. I'm here in Asia. A lot of my clients are here in Asia. It's a bit different. Like in Thailand, we don't have many laws. Okay, guys, it's getting late. I'm going to start putting my foot in my mouth. I don't want to say anything incriminating. But just gotta let the clients know. I think the basics though too, like watch out for the Google fonts, the checkbox. If you do have like a sign up, don't put that checkbox checked automatically. Those little tiny things.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Do you know any more of those? Any of those little tips?
Probably the last thing I can just say, and Jeffrey, it's just something that you touched on perfectly there. Don't over-engineer your solution for your client. Ultimately, a website is just a solution, and the simplest solutions are the things that work the best. Whether it's with, cookie policies or whatever else, think of what the client actually needs. And again, even with fonts, I know, Jeffrey, is something that you've covered very well within your YouTube channel and things that I've come across before within your courses. Start off with one font, make sure you have it running locally. Most of the services or most of the page builders now offer that facility. Even Gutenberg offers that facility now as of 6.2, which is due to drop anytime today. Meant to be yesterday, but it might be today. Who knows? But yeah, don't over engineer things. Keep it simple. If you're building a brochure site, use something like Elementor, Gutenberg, whatever. You don't need a big all singing, all dancing third party builder if you can get away with it. Keep the plugins to the minimum. Less plugins, less risk. And as Jeffrey pointed out, don't go near an EIG company. Stick with something like SiteGround or a kind of mid-tier shared provider if you're just starting off. And then when you're ready and you feel more comfortable, jump to the next step, something like Cloudways. And again, Jeffrey, I know you did some really good videos in that last year, actually. There's good content there for people who want to learn about Cloudways and how to work with it.
Yeah.
So there's my nuggets for today.
Cool. Cool. There's some questions inside it. I want to make sure we get these before we bounce off. So Derek is asking, let me see, if you're good at Elementor, you're proficient at it, is it worth getting into HTML, CSS, and Java, or I'm guessing JavaScript? And is it worth the time to start spreading services based off of just Elementor? So it's a two-part question.
That's a really good question. So, whenever you're scaling a business, any technology business, it's all about dependencies and risk assessment to a degree, right? My advice is, Elementor's been around for a very long time now. It's a very well established, mature product. If you're comfortable with it and subject to what services you're providing, you can definitely scale with it. Is it worth learning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? 100% yes. Regardless of what page builder you're using, they are fundamental things that any developer over time should be gathering information on and learning. There's great channels out there on YouTube and other resources online for learning those things. You don't need to pay for it. Again, Jeffrey, I know you've covered some really good content on using CSS, JavaScript snippets, all sorts of really cool stuff for Elementor. So if anything, actually, there's a lot of people out there that will use Elementor as kind of like almost like that gateway into that world of, they can visually build the website. Okay, well, how can I customize it? And they start to, gradually get their head around using CSS and, what they can do with that. HTML, I think, is slightly different. And you need to learn as a fundamental thing to do with web design in general, and how to structure pages. And again, there's a crossover with design on that as well. It's not just about learning HTML on the page. There's various elements to that. But in terms, you can definitely scale with Elementor if you want to. I'd actually say out of all the page builders available at the minute, and this is not me fanboying Elementor, I'm not at all. I use Elementor, Bricks. I actually use Gutenberg more than I use any of the other ones. My current projects are all in full site editing. But be mindful whenever you are scaling of what product you use. All of them carry technical debt. Go with one that's established, mature. There's a good support mechanism behind it. It's well funded. These are things for yourself as an entrepreneur, as a business person, you need to think about, But you couldn't go too far wrong with Elementor. Put it this way, in 2023, in my mind right now, the kind of two core things I would look at would be Gutenberg, because it's free. So it is, and it's advanced so much in the last few years alone, or something like Elementor. They're the scalable products right now. And there's no disrespect to people who use Bricks and Oxygen and all those things. They are great products. Bricks is a very new product to the market. It's still a lifetime deal, and it will be until it's really production ready. So look, I know I'll probably get slated for that. It's a great product, but again, it falls into a niche category in my mind for more experienced developers, as did Oxygen. Where Elementor is something that most people can pick up and start to go with pretty fast, including clients. So the client bit is just as important as the developer experience. I know there's a lot of people out there who say clients shouldn't be doing stuff on web pages and all that there. Very much depending on the clients that you service. I know personally, I work with clients that some of them have internal marketing and design departments of 20, 30, 40, 50 people. If I turn around and said, actually, you can't so much as touch anything on this website bar creating posts, I would lose that client. You need to empower clients where possible and to try and do some of the work without breaking the design integrity. So you can do that with Elementor and Gutenberg and these solutions, so just something to be mindful of.
And that's why I go back to, a web design business is not a cookie cutter business. We have different clients where we run things different ways. And you know what? It might work for some, or, hey, we build, we manage, nobody touches, no one has access. If that works for you and it works for your clients, that's great, But what works for us is going to be something different. So it all comes down to, who we're servicing, the type of clients that we have, stuff like that. Uh,
Yeah.
One thing I am going to add to this is when it comes, first off, we are super lucky that we got tools like Elementor, Gutenberg, or even Bricks or Oxygen or
Yeah.
something. We're very lucky because, geez, like 6, 7 years ago when I started, like, it's like you either had to go choose a big old theme out of Theme Forest or try to figure out how to make a custom theme. We didn't really have that many choices. And even when we had those, still, it's not like what we have today. What we have today are tools that's going to allow web creators get ahead a lot quicker, get started quicker, making money doing this. That is what we have. But I feel it is still fundamental to learn HTML, CSS, and at least have an understanding of JavaScript. It's fundamental,
Yes.
not just for WordPress developers or people building WordPress sites, even for web designers. I believe a designer who is just working on Figma should understand HTML and CSS. So that way they know what it takes to build what they are designing. Could the development team deliver on what they are designing? So we need to understand those. And I'll take it even a bit further. We should also expand our knowledge to hosting, cPanel. Even if you're not using a cPanel, should still understand it. Should still understand how to use an FTP. These things.
Mhm.
So I feel like don't just get too comfortable with Elementor. It's great, master it. I'm a believer in mastering one thing at a time. But once you mastered it, let's move on to the next. Figure out how to build a very simple page with just HTML, CSS, and to upload that into a cPanel. Figure that out, and that's going to help you in your journey so much. Like when you come across a client that has a certain situation, you'll know how to deal with it instead of being completely lost.
Yeah.
Uh, Let me see. So Leonardo, yeah, we're this is going to be recorded. I'm going to leave it live going forward, and Clement, what's up, man? Oh, so I got to figure out my mic. I guess my voice is low. That happened the last time we did this as well. We did run into some technical issues. I didn't even get a chance to get my tea. I'm like, my mouth is so dry. My water is like off somewhere. It was. I guess only Tony and I know how the start of this live went, man. I really
Yeah.
appreciate. I really appreciate.
Stress. We got
Almost.
there though. It's all good.
We got there. We got there. Hey, man, I am so thankful for you coming on, man. And I'm always learning something from you. And I just love geeking out with you. I learn a lot from you. We have a lot of the same passions, especially when it comes to the tools and building stacks. One thing we didn't get a chance to talk about, we're out of time, but that's like the automations and the things we could do to set up.
Mm.
So man, if you're keen to it, I'd love to have you on again. So I'll probably be hitting you up sometime in the near future. And we'll have something better set up or prepared.
Yeah, look, Jeffrey, 100% happy to come back on and talk automations, and that's an entire topic on itself. We could probably make a series of YouTube videos on that one. Um, but yeah, look, Jerry, just want to say as well, and I think part of the reason, like, we've always gravitated together well, and I'm a great believer. You learn from you learn from people that are different from you too. And like as I mentioned at the very start of the call, like my biggest Achilles heel is design. I don't classify myself as a good designer. I hate looking back at my websites. I came more from an application development background, so to me everything should be very, very simple and clean, but not like a website, more like a Windows program. And equally I've learned so much from you over the last few years, through the courses that I've done in Lytbox Academy, and equally everybody in the Lytbox Academy. There's some seriously talented people in there. And it's just great to have that resource on hand, within the circle community to drop in and ask questions and figure out stuff, because as we've both said before, every day is a learning day. Every day where you wake up as a new student in technology and in web design, because it's always changing. There's always something new to learn, which is, I think, part of the motivation why so many of us do it.
Yeah.
Never gets boring.
it never gets boring. There's no reason for it to get boring. I mean, geez, it's always evolving. Now we got AI, which is, yeah, that's a whole other one. But for everybody else, like we got a few pro members here. We do this every week in the Lytbox Academy. So every week we have calls. We get together. Like we got a call tomorrow night. It's one of our live events. It's a fireside chat where we're just talking about our tech stacks that we use, like for WordPress and whatever we're using for productivity. So if you guys want to know more about that, check out lightboxacademy.com. It's all inside the description. You know what? I'm kind of needing some water right now. Look, I really appreciate you. Like, yeah, this one went quickly. Like, we just jumped on real quick before really getting everything set up. But again, learning lessons. Andrea, it's good to see you here. Oh, it's good to see everybody. So check this out. We're doing this every week going forward. I want to keep this going because I've been connecting with some real cool people like Tony. People are building tools who have like these very unique skill sets. And I want to be able to open up the space for everybody to connect more, to connect and learn. Because, man, the thing I love most since I started this journey of web creation is the constant learning and the constant just growth process. It's taught me to learn more than just about web development, but more about myself. It's a continuing process. Business, self-development, all that stuff. It's all wrapped up in it. So with that, I think we're gonna drop the mic on this one. What'd you say, Tony?
Boom. Yeah. Job done.
All right. Thanks, Tony. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm going to
Cheers,
click.
guys.
All right. See y'all soon. Let me figure out how to turn this off.
We'll just keep running out throughout the night, so
Right. Do you know what I saw?
we watch this live on YouTube, sleeping in their chairs.
I was going through reels on Instagram, and the imam in the mosque, he left the microphone on while he fell asleep, and he was snoring. And it was just snoring through the whole neighborhood.
Oh man.
Yeah, that would be classic, man. Oh, we're still live. Okay, hold on. Let me turn this off.
Yeah.